3. Welcome in, everyone, to Life Without Limits, because there are no limits to what you can achieve. My name is Joan Kaler. I'm your host. I am a little bit of everything. I'm your host. I'm a consultant. I am a certified EFT practitioner, consulting with people around the world, a keynote speaker, a licensed therapist in Pennsylvania, and the list goes on. Today's show is very important. Today, I have an expert on addictions, all addictions, chemical, alcohol, sex, love, shopping, sugar, whatever you can't stop doing, gambling, whatever you can't stop doing because you're addicted to it, gaming. My head is spinning thinking of everything, all the problems that we have in addiction in this world. So I am going to discuss a little bit my guest, who I am over the moon to have on the show today. Micki Profit is a certified addictions counselor. She is also an EFT matrix reimprinting practitioner and lifestyle and fitness coach. Mikki brings over 30 years experience to her work that she continues to do with passion and complete belief that freedom is possible. And we do know that for sure. What the center line is that ties all of her work together is courage. Whether you're recovering from addiction, healing from surgery, navigating a family crisis, or finally wanting to take control of your health and fitness, she is here to tell us that the journey forward takes bravery, and it is so worth it. Now, the title of this podcast is called Trauma is the Gateway Drug. Because in my humble opinion, and in Micki's humble opinion, group counseling and certified or cognitive behavior therapy is not enough. It just isn't. So that only works on the conscious part of the brain, the tip of the iceberg. For those of you who are therapists and coaches out there and lifestyle experts, please listen into all this, because you really can't help your client with, especially licensed therapists, you can't help your clients with cognitive behavior therapy alone. Please listen to what Mikki is saying about this. We were having a conversation earlier about why would anybody just use CBT? Yes, it is evidence-based, but so is emotional freedom techniques. You knew I was going to get that in here, emotional freedom techniques. So without further ado, I want to welcome in Micki Profit. Mikki, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Joan, so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, I am thrilled. An addictions counselor. So trauma is the gateway drug. I understand that.
Right.
But let's explain to all our listeners and viewers what you mean by that.
Sure. What I mean by that, and this comes with decades of experience, is that any substance that we use, just from the list that you presented, is really a Band-Aid to whatever is going on underneath, right? And so we know that addiction is about pain, and that using a substance of any sort to relieve that pain, to numb or dim that pain, is the external product to quiet the internal voices that are kind of driving our life. And we know that trauma is stored on a cellular level.
Yes.
And so trauma being the gateway drug, when I'm working with a client, I have to ask them, or I do ask them, like, what is your pain? What is this about? I look for the underlying cause rather than the superficial presentation of the addiction. Not that our body, our physiology doesn't take on the substances, or we don't create patterns and we become dependent, but I think there's just a bigger question at hand that we need to be asking.
Yes, absolutely. What is behind the pain?
Yeah, what is behind the pain?
Mhm.
I think of Gabor Mate, and he says addiction is neither a choice nor a disease, but originates in a human being's desperate attempt to solve a problem. Right?
Oh, that is so
Right.
beautiful.
And the problem of emotional pain, of overwhelming stress, of lost connection and loss of control. And
Yes.
so, and the deep discomfort of self. And so how I have simplified my definition of addiction um, is going away or traveling away from oneself, right?
Mhm.
Whatever we're doing to leave our inner being. And recovery is about, to recover something is about finding something that is lost. And in addiction, the thing that is lost is ourselves. So when we enter recovery, we're returning home to ourself.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely. And if anybody doesn't think that trauma is stored on a cellular level,
Oh,
read Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert. Read The Biology of Belief. Yes, by Bruce
yep.
Lipton.
The body
And,
keeps score.
yep, yep. So then, once we understand that this happens on a cellular level, once we understand that we are running away from ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
how do you help people with addiction, no matter what kind of an addiction it is?
Well, up until about 5 years ago, I was doing traditional cognitive behavioral therapy with my clients. And then once I started learning about trauma, that led me to EFT and matrix reimprinting.
Good thing.
So today, as a addictions counselor and EFT practitioner, I use EFT with all of my clients, emotional freedom techniques
Yes,
and matrix reimprinting.
good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anybody out there that still doesn't know what emotional freedom techniques are, I have to be compassionate and kind, because maybe somebody is just tuning in for the first time and they're like, what is emotional freedom techniques?
Right.
Let's just do a little explanation for everyone.
Sure. So I have to put, so emotional freedom techniques is also called tapping, right? Meridian tapping. And so it's a way when you're experiencing a negative emotional state, as an example, angry, upset, stressed out. We know what we all live in, kind of a state of stress in this world today. Our brain goes into alert, right? And so, and it prepares our body for what we'll call a full-blown fight or flight response. So that reptilian part of our brain turns on, all of our blood rushes to our limbs, our blood sugar rises, our heart rate increases to prepare us to escape or to survive something. And so that can happen in a traffic jam in this world, right? Back in the day, it was really a survival mechanism. That's how we were created, because survival was key. Today, we don't have tigers chasing us per se. We just live in a very fast-paced world. And so there can be an undercurrent of stress that just is present, that we've become used to. And so our body is responding as if we are in survival without us even knowing. And so EFT, right, emotional freedom techniques,
Mm-hmm.
by tapping on on the meridians on our upper body, sends that calming signal to the brain, which puts us back online on our frontal lobe, and then we're back in a more grounded, decision-making, creative state of existence.
I love how it is evidence-based. There is lots of research behind it.
Right.
I love how it lowers the cortisol.
Yes.
I love how it is soothing and calming, because no one can we know when we're stuck in that primitive part of the brain, we can't think clearly. We can't make good decisions. That's back of the brain. That's not where we are, or the middle of the brain. Not until the cortisol goes down, not until the amygdala calms down, can we move to the front of the brain and start thinking again and start making better decisions. We can't, because we're stuck.
Right. And we can't be objective when we're in survival. We have no objectivity of how we're reacting to whatever circumstance. that may be. Can I give you an example?
Please. Mm-hmm.
This is a personal example, and I was just thinking about this the other day. So I grew up in a very traumatic home. I have complex childhood trauma that I've worked on. But the other day I was thinking about math. And math was a big T trauma that occurred when I was about 13 or 14 in my home. And so here's how the brain works. I'm in my 40s. I'm taking another math class in college that I need to take. And the professor looks at me and says, clearly you don't understand this. Well, that wasn't, first of all, that wasn't a very nice thing to say.
Right.
But secondly, this is how trauma works. I'm a 40-some-year-old grown woman sitting in a classroom with younger people than myself. And suddenly I'm back at that dinner table with my father, and I'm sobbing hysterically in the middle of this math class, and I can't move.
Oh.
And it wouldn't stop. And so with trauma, there's no time, space, reality. It's as if it was happening again in that moment. And I had no ability to be objective and say, wait a minute, that wasn't very nice to say, right? And I am trying really hard here. I lost all of my ability. And it probably took me, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to get myself grounded and reoriented before I could even begin to pick my head up and look around and see that I had just freaked out in public.
So were you in the classroom sobbing and going through that?
I was in the front of the classroom. Yes.
Oh, did anybody come to your aid or try and help?
No, they probably didn't know what the heck to do. I mean, it wasn't even a rational reaction, right? But that's trauma. It's not rational or reasonable. We go from A to Z in the blink of an eye when we're triggered, and our body doesn't know that it wasn't that moment that we experienced that trauma.
You didn't know how to resource yourself or tapping at the time.
Oh no, I had no idea.
Oh
no, but that's how quickly it happens, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
not on purpose. And so I think as someone who works in the addictions field, and like you said, with clinicians, we must begin to become more aware of those triggers and how they respond, how people respond when they are triggered, and how do we resource them and orient them and then begin to help them release that stored trauma.
I told you, everyone, this woman was very wise. Yes. And how we help them
release our
stored trauma. Right. And then that's when EFT comes in. So then whatever the addiction is that they're using to cover up the pain, it's our job to help find out how that pain started in the first place. What was the trauma that created that pain? And then through gentle EFT, we're not talking a bull in a china shop here, people. There are very gentle ways to do this. Then we help them start to release slowly, safely, and gently. We help them release that trauma.
Yes, and safety is key, right?
Absolutely.
That's the number one objective in all of my work that I work. And I know that my clients have trauma.
Everybody has trauma. You can't be human and not have trauma.
Right. And so when we think of the disease model of addiction, right?
Yes. Okay.
I think of, and the way that I use it currently is like dis-ease. What are you ill at ease with in your life that is causing you pain and living the life that you are living not on your terms? Part of my work is helping women primarily release their guilt, reclaim their what I'll call misplaced power, and bravely restore a life worth living on their terms. In addiction, you're not living on your terms.
No. Oh, wow. That is incredible. I was working with a client the other day, and I said, the only thing I want you to do is drink water. Because the next time we meet, I'm going to teach you some things, but you have to get properly hydrated and drink more water. So, not talking about anything else, just please drink water, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, in order for EFT to really work, being grounded and hydration are two important steps to letting the tapping. When we tap on our top of our head and points on the face, which are the beginnings of the electrical meridians going inside our body, we're sending an subtle electrical current down through those meridians. And if we're not properly hydrated, it doesn't work as well. So I really encourage everybody to make sure that they are properly hydrated before beginning a tapping session, and especially when you're releasing trauma. But then going back to the point of trauma is the gateway drug. That's where it starts. Not necessarily through marijuana, not necessarily, God forbid, through Oxycontin or prescribed drugs or shopping or gambling or hair pulling or skin picking or sex or video games. Mm-hmm. That's what we all do to, or whatever your addiction might be, that's what we all do to escape the pain.
Right. And when so I've worked with youth, high school youth, for 20 plus years and their families.
Wow.
And so the kids that I've worked with are using heavily and a lot. But the one question that I ask is, well, first of all, did you ever intend to abuse substances? And the reply is 100% always no. I said, but the first time you used, did you go, oh, there it is. There it is, that little bit of relief. Can you think back to the first time you used and something felt better? And they go, yes. And so that's where it starts. That's what I mean by the pain. They don't know they're in pain or what the pain is. They just feel awful. And so when you put that substance or pick at your skin or pull your hair or get into another relationship, there is that temporary moment of relief. And so we return to what makes us feel better time and time again, right? Mm-hmm. And without same behavior, expecting different resuls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, or the empty promises of I'm only going to drink Monday through Friday. I won't drink, or, whatever, the bargaining that we do. And young people do it too, right? Of course, I will not ever use heroin because that's the worst drug of all, but I will use Oxy. Mm-hmm. That way I can prove to myself I'm not addicted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But we get addicted to I did a group once with a group of high school kids around the ritual of use. Like what happens before you actually use, right?
Cool. Okay.
The pre-contemplation, the contemplation, driving to your dealer's house, picking the drugs up before you, it's your whole body chemistry is changing then too. And that relief begins,
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. So not just when you use your substance, but the ritual before you use the substance.
Thinking about it, driving to the store to buy that bottle of wine, going into the dispensary to pick up the marijuana, or your dealer, depending on how you obtain it, right?
Yep, right.
Sex. The next time you have sex, or if you're out of a relationship, then you're on the hunt for the next relationship. And there's something shifts, like there's hope suddenly.
Wow. So with tapping, as you're getting the history, as you're finding out how someone became addicted and what their addiction is, then you start to discover the traumas in their lives that created the pain, the anxiety that led to them using. And that's when we use EFT tapping.
Yes, that's exactly right.
To tap out the traumas.
Right. And we know in tapping, we meet our client right where they are, with each family member on their own specific traumas.
Mikki, you do great work.
Thank you.
You really do. And from our lips to the world's ears, that this is how trauma needs to be addressed.
Yes, because it's incredibly personal, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about trauma or being trauma informed, but when we have a client that has experienced sexual assault, or a child that is addicted and has run away or lived on the streets. My daughter lived on the streets. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know anything about trauma. I just knew my life was in a shambles.
Wow.
Right.
I had a discussion with my local county commissioner, because she wants to set up this thing. And I think her heart is in the right place. She wants to set up this thing to help people with addictions. And I wrote her an email and I said, this is why this isn't going to work. So then I went in and talked to her. I haven't heard back, but I'm just thinking, please don't make this same old, because it's not going to work. It's not about another medication. It's not about just trying to find a therapist who can help you in the moment. It's not about group therapy. It's not about cognitive behavior therapy. That is so 20th century. We have come so far. I also want to add a little commercial in here, in that for those who are seriously interested in helping people with addictions, I'm going to have a link in the description of this podcast where you can go to get training in specific EFT and trauma training.
Yes.
Through EFT tapping. So yeah, you all need to know where you can go for real training for this. Okay.
So when you said that, what I think of is relapse, right?
Yes.
Because as we begin to uncover and release those traumas, then the person that has the addiction or addictions, typically plural, and begins to heal, they stand a much better chance of progressing out of their addictive belief system, out of their addictive patterns, out of their lifestyle. But when we only address it from a talk perspective, they might get sober from alcohol, but I call it whack-a-mole. If you don't address what's really fueling the addiction, then something else is just going to crop up.
Right.
Right? We know that.
Absolutely.
See it all the time. I have a client that's got 8 years sober, but struggles with sex in an addictive way. So that's what we're working on now.
Yep.
But complex childhood trauma.
In my work with trichotillomania, I work with a lot of children as well. So I teach them how to calm the stress. Your story about your trauma in math just blew me away, because I'm working with 2 teens right now who have difficulty in math, and that's what triggered their hair pulling. I'm like, what's going on out there in math?
I think if you're right-brained and more creative, that math tends to be more difficult, right?
Well, Lord knows I know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Then I'm done. That's all.
Yeah, right? Right. And imagine if you have trauma in your home on top of it. And then trying to learn, right? And stay online on that part of in that part of your brain to learn math. That was an impossibility for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yes, whatever addiction somebody is addicted to, there is a solution, everyone. There is hope. Mikki and I so want to spread the word of hope, that you're not stuck with this. You know what, Mikki? I want to take everybody, to your website as well. I've got to get there. Okay, I'm just going to pause this for 1 second. All right, everyone, I'm going to take you to Mikki's website, which is fabulous. I want you all to see this. Isn't this cool, everyone? Look at this. She who is brave is free. And I love this question. Need a dose of courage right now?
Right.
Yes. Look at all this. And everyone continue to subscribe and follow, because Mikki and I are doing 2 shows. So this is the one about addictions and trauma, but we're going to do another show about her. You do everything, Mikki, honestly. A certified addictions counselor, a personal trainer. Whoa. So
But
much.
it all works together, right?
Yes.
Because our mind and bodies. And so how exercise and fitness saved my life. And that's a true statement.
Wow. Can you tell us? I'm going to stop sharing here, but this is Mikki, Mikki, Profit, PROFFITT.com. I will have it in the description as well. Please contact Mikki. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and go back to us. Can you share a little bit about your personal experience, how you got into personal training, how that saved your life? What happened?
Yeah, for
With
sure.
that? Yeah.
Well, so growing up in the home that I did, that was heavy laden with addiction and abuse, and disconnection, really a lot of dysfunction, being the eldest of 3 girls and really being an introvert, and amongst many, many other things that took place in my home. When I was 23, I began running. I had just had my first child and I needed a break, so I started running. But what I realized was that by running, it was the first time in my life that I began connecting with my body and my mind. And it was my first taste of freedom. And so I don't know if that makes any sense,
It
but
does. All
yeah.
right. Well, before you knew EFT, your first taste of freedom. So it wasn't like you were running away from something.
Not at all.
Okay.
And it was the first time in my life that I felt empowered,
Oh,
because coming from
wow.
a home of addiction and
Okay.
trauma, there's not a lot of empowerment going on, right? There's a lot of
Right.
survival. And so I was very good at running and running long distances, which then led me to the gym, which then led me to become an instructor and a trainer, which is a passion of mine. I can't imagine. I've been teaching for 39 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
Totally cool. Boy, if I lived closer.
We'd have fun.
Yeah, that helps me as well.
Yeah.
I
So
love.
I've not ever been a yogi. And what I found, and I think I just want to speak to this for a second, is sometimes when when you have unresolved trauma in your body, yoga can be too overwhelming. That's
Oh.
what I found. Like, I just wanted to burst into tears. And if that instructor isn't yoga informed, meaning they come and adjust your body or touch you or help you in
Oh,
a
okay.
way, that can be a trigger.
Right.
And so if you know you have unresolved trauma,
Yes.
I think then I became responsible for my own well-being, to put myself in safe places, because everybody is not trauma informed. Everybody doesn't understand, and well-intentioned people can do harm.
Yes. Truer words were never spoken. This is so true. Yeah. So what I want to do is let everyone know that they can contact you, contact me if they need any help with EFT tapping. I certainly can help with most addictions. I am not a certified addictions counselor in that I'm not completely up to date on all the drugs that people get into, but I certainly can help them with their traumas and their pain for sure. Mikki, what else do you want the world to know? Because I have 100,000 listeners.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the thing that I want people to know is, when I think of working with my clients, and they're these brilliant, beautiful, accomplished women, right? Who are working today to release that trauma. They're moms, they're professors, they're just these beautiful women. My mind just kind of went blank. But what keeps them really in that cycle that they can't seem to break free of is especially moms of children that are addicted, or the families, is what ifs. If
Yes,
only I
yes.
would have. How could I have ever not seen that coming? I've tried so hard, and how did we, through my best efforts, how did we still wind up here? And the guilt and the shame that just weighs moms down when their child is struggling for sometimes decades, literally decades. And my question then is, when is it your turn to start living your life?
Wow.
Because your child may never, ever not be on the path they're on. There's no guarantees. My daughter's still on her path, and she's 38, and it wasn't for lack of effort. It came to a point, I say this in my story on my website, that I had to choose me, because I had wanted something different for her so passionately that it almost cost me my life.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
And the heartbreak, right? The heartbreak of we don't have resources for moms of struggling children that really help the moms. The moms suffer in silence, right?
And gaming.
Yep. Yeah. And so what I say, and I say this to the clinicians out there, if indeed trauma doesn't have anything to do with addiction, it's at least worth exploring.
Yes.
Because what's the worst that can happen? You'll say, oh, I was right. Trauma doesn't have anything to do. But if it does, and we know it does, then the work that all of us do is so much greater, and the healing is so much greater. And I feel like we owe that to all of our clients.
The healing is so much more complete, and there's there's less of a chance for relapse.
Yep.
And there's a greater chance for moving forward with your life when you heal those traumas.
Yep. And to have the life that you want to live on your terms, right? Yeah, we get to decide, because addiction isn't running the show anymore. And trauma, I say, and I did not create this, but trauma wins every time.
Yep. So everybody, please read the description in iTunes, which is going to have a wealth of information and links and book titles and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to really work hard to put vital information in the iTunes. Also, folks, please, from my heart, share this with someone you love. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. Friend, parent, family member, share this podcast. I'm begging you. Okay, I'm not above begging for this.
And this is the thing that I want to say too, from my heart, is that you don't have to do it alone.
Thank you.
Yep. You know, I can handle this. I hear that a lot. I can handle this. I'll figure it out. You're not meant to do this alone. It's a journey that you get to take with someone who can help guide you, keep you safe, and support you along the way at every turn. And so you don't have to be alone. You're not alone. You don't have to do this alone.
Including your website, is there any other way that people can contact you, or would you just like to leave your website as your main contact?
I think my website is my main contact, and then they can schedule a free consultation, which can just be a conversation about, I heard you talk and I've got some questions. Okay, let's address them.
So the beauty of technology, both of us consult with people all over the world.
Yep. And that's part of what I do too, is consulting. Like, how do I get my child into a treatment center, or how do I step out of the way and get my self-help? This isn't about me. This is about the healing of whoever comes across my path.
Gosh, this is worth its weight in platinum, this podcast. I want to thank you so much, Mikki. Now, everybody
Thank
stay
you.
tuned because we have another really cool podcast
Me
with
too.
Mikki coming up. I can't remember the title at the moment. Mikki, it has to do with pink gloves. What are we going to
It's
talk
called
about?
Pink Gloves Boxing.
Pink Gloves Boxing is coming up next, so keep
Woohoo.
listening.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching to this podcast. It's my honor and privilege to bring you this information and bring you these fantastic guests, and I thank you. So with all due respect, until next time, life without limits, because there are no limits to what you can achieve.